Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew and Friday Night Knives. And tonight we have what I think is a sleeper. I did a quick check. It wasn't comprehensive or anything like that, but I haven't seen a lot on the Bestech Goodboy. It's a pretty nice little sleeper knife in the button lock fashion. You can get them for under 55 bucks, I think, right now. But let's get over that right now. Let's get it. So I just want to let you know that right up front that I think this is a sleeper. So if you didn't catch that, spoiler alert. But let's go over why I think that first off, because it's actually a pretty nifty little bit. Where's the? There we go. I almost started without being prepared again. But it just happens to be slightly out of reach. Let's go over with the empirical measurements. All right, here we go. So we're talking about a 3.5 inch blade, 8.25 inch overall, pretty nice little lobed handle with a button lock. Not bad on the dimensions and everything right there. So that's what can you say? Like it's pretty classic, but it's classic for a reason. So let's get to the. Actually, let's finish up the empirical measurement, so to speak. .56 ounces, right? For a 3.5 inch blade, a full size knife, slightly over 3.5 ounces. About an ounce per inch, you could argue it might be even slightly over 3.5 for the blade, but approximately an ounce per inch. Not bad. It is G10 and it's hard to tell if it's contoured because it's basically flat, but with this really big bevel that makes it almost seem contoured. Weight relief in there. There you can see. There's weight relief inside the nested liners. Lots of room for G10 on the nested liners to help with weight reduction, so that's a good bit. Let me give you some of the other good news. Right? Okay. Pretty thin blade stock there. It is a full flat grind, so it's hard to get. But basically, pretty solid blade stock, about 110 thousandths. Let me see if I can, because this is really thin behind the edge. Civivi gets a lot of credit, well earned, I might add, for the thinness behind the edges, but I tell you, Bestech can do a pretty darn good job when they want to. This one's really hard to get to because it's so thin behind the edge. And I think so that there. So, wow. 155 10 thousandths behind the edge, and that's a little bit below. So it's probably about 15 thousandths behind the edge in all reality. I had to go a little bit below just to make sure I could grip it, because that's, look at how thin that secondary bevel is. There's also a multi-grind. Okay, so now we've had our empirical, get our regular reference, the Spyderco sandwich, much closer to the Paramilitary 2 than the Para 3, lightweight in this case, both S45VN. Right, so definitely more, in fact, more cutting edge, less hand space. Though if you put it with the beak, the hand space is more comparable than you might think. And in a pinch grip, and I'll get to that in a minute, it's not as bad as it is some others. So a little bit more blade length and cutting edge, not much in overall. But definitely something that's good ratios for the people that are into that kind of thing. This one has some pretty solid ratios, and it's just a blur. right? You can see some actual similarities in hand space between the Blur and this one, though that you get a little bit of space there for your finger, which does come handy later. And not just any leak, but a random leak. And there you go. Again, lots of hand space when you look at it, which is for the size and the sort of the affordability of this is pretty spot on here. And of course the Benchmade bug out, definitely bigger, more hand space. It is a larger knife, larger weight. You know, it is the full size, not the mid size, as that obviously points out. And here it is compared to my Wienar. And while it might be bigger, it is just more plain Jane, and that makes my Wienar more interesting, and that's all I care about right now. All right, let's get to the damn nice of the design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost to value ratio, and expectations, and if nicer, in the recommendations or requests, however you want to look at it. All right, so first thing on the design. It is very much a classic. Some people may even think it's generic. I'm going to call it a sleeper because it is full size. There's plenty of room. I have to spread out my fingers to reach the end, so that's at least an XL glove in most areas. Most brands, I should say. It also is comfortable in a saber grip. Okay, the pinch grip, even up high like kitchen knife style, that little bit of space allows just enough room. Now you got to be careful if you're doing this, but if you're in a pinch grip with something this small, you're doing it so that you have the extra control. And so you want to be careful, but there's just enough room that you aren't on the edge if you have a finger right there while you're pinching on the thumb studs. If you have any pinch grip further back, there's still enough room, and with the fingers out of the way, you can't engage the button lock. The recess and the design of it makes it that you have to very distinctively engage the button below the surface in order for it to disengage and come out. So you can pinch grip a little bit behind for some further back control, or if you're a similar grip where you have your finger over the top and your thumbs right there, you're not going to accidentally disengage it at all while your fingers are in there and your other fingers on top putting some pressure. So that's good, right? It has all that built in. It has a rounded where there isn't this very fine jimping, which is it's just enough to provide traction, but not enough to give wear. So for EDC tasks, this is fantastic, right? This isn't, I'm going to go out and hack up a log, kind of thing. But for EDC tasks, it is incredible, okay? Incredible. And it's D2 steel. I don't know if that's something I had mentioned before. And it has that secondary grind it has distal taper to the blade as a full flat grind. And to add a little bit more strength right behind the tip, it has that secondary, it has that two-stage grind out there that makes it just go quick to the tip right there, right? So you get a slightly more robust tip than if it just went on a full flat grind out to there, right? It allows you to get this sort of profile and with a nice distal taper that gives you a slightly more robust tip, and that's really cool. The color scheme is nice. It comes in tons. There's a black blade. There's all sorts of other colors. The aesthetics are the two-stage grind gives you just a little bit of visual pop. There's just it looks knifey. For anyone who knows, this is a very good all-purpose drop point lobed handle, right? This is really there. It has this very subtle grip that makes it classic. It works just enough that you get that much extra grip, whatever's touching right there does. You know, and it looks really good. As far as the mechanics on the button lock, it is great. If there's one thing that sucks on the mechanics and partly design, is it's that pocket clip. That pocket clip is incredibly narrow. Look at how, if you look at how small that is, just overall, it's not going to allow for very thick pants. Even with the recess, it's not even. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch. It might be 4 millimeters total at most, right? So just slightly over 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16. No, not even that. Anyway, but yeah, it's pretty slim, but it's light enough that you can carry it in lighter clothes as well and still have it perform. Especially if you have one of the, I don't know, I know for the price, I'm pretty sure it's not DLC, but I don't know if it's PVD or what. But the coated blades, you know, will give you a little bit more corrosion resistance if you want to take it outdoors or anything like that. But otherwise, it's just a really good EDC blade. You know, it is a package piercer with that reinforced tip. Absolutely. It is a shrink wrap slicer. You have lots of control, including the ability to really choke up even, you know, pick a sliver and all that sort of stuff. It is a cardboard carver with that full flat grind, the nice jimping where you need it most, and then the rounded spine that gives you just this nice smooth rounding to it, that while it doesn't really take off the friction of the edge right there, it makes it so that anytime you do have to touch it, it's smooth and isn't really going to get you. There's a little bit of edge to it, still. Kept going off camera, I apologize for that. A little bit of edge to it still, jimping right where you need it and rounding where it is. That part of it is fantastic, right? So I would say on the mechanics, I have yet to find a problem with the real. I mean, it is drop shut just like a button lock should, just like a plunge lock should be. It's centered for the most part. It is, let's see, it's just, it may even be just slightly up. Let me see if I can't fix that. Okay, there we are. Yeah, just maybe just slightly off. A slight push and it got in there. So yeah, that just might be from using my thumb a lot more than the reverse freeway flip here. Right, so that could be something that does it. But it's incredibly smooth. There's no sticking points. It's bearings on a plunge lock, like it's drop shut. It's really hard to complain about that. In fact, that's the noteworthy point about this knife. Right now, you can find it for under $55. You know, the next 3 categories all blend together quite easily, because the noteworthy points is there's really nothing wrong with this knife. It's D2, so okay, maybe you don't like that D2 isn't super corrosion resistant. You can get it in coated versions that help with that corrosion resistance. But it's extraordinarily good. It's very classic and basic. It does everything well, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's really the noteworthy points. Because the intended purpose is obviously a nice, slim, easy to carry EDC knife. And there's the D2 for anyone who's wondering. It's just a good, nice EDC knife. And at the cost to value ratio of under $55 with something that has this good of action, that is as good an action as anything you'll find at a higher price point. There's really, like, you can find nitpickiness, like, oh, it doesn't have a slower drop, or you can't, like, you can control it, right? Like, it's, if you let go of the button and let just do it, it has very linear action on that. So that's, you know, but by keeping the button in, you just take the pressure off. It has a really good spring tension. I think it's fantastic on that. So on the cost evaluation, under $55, D2 steel that's got a reinforced tip, extremely thin behind the edge at that 15 thousandths pretty much, with a D2 blade that's got this full flat grind and a reinforced tip. you're going to get EDC performance out of this all day long with good edge retention, geometry that helps the D2 along, and the ability to do general EDC tasks like, cardboard carving and envelope eviscerating very, very well. That's really hard to beat. And I think that's the noteworthy point about this. This is just a really good EDC knife at a really fair price that I think people are sleeping on. It's really hard to understate the high value. This is really especially in this day and age of $60 and $70 knives, having this kind of features and value. Finding one under 60 and under 55 is a real bargain, and this is a real bargain that's out there. This is as good as a 70 to even some $100+ knives. And when it comes to action, and some of the touches like the rounded spine maybe could be finished a little bit more, but if that's all you get for a knife that's 3 times as expensive, send me 3 of these instead. That's the sheer value level. In fact, I'm going to give it a 99 on the value level just for the day and age that it is. This is huge on the value level. I hope this does get some attention, because seeing the same thing in a higher value version where you have some nicer materials at another good price point, I can see an S35VN with other handle materials or similar handle materials, and maybe some upgraded ones like the wood or the carbon fiber or something at like the $100 to $120 price point. That would be also extremely high value. You can find a lot of S35VN around $100 these days, and it would give you the similar edge retention, better corrosion resistance, and a much higher toughness to support that thin edge for the same design. If I was to put a request on it, that's the request I'd want for this knife. So just to recap here, the design I think is great. It is really an all-around EDC heavy hitter. Its aesthetics are good. It has that nice drop point, full flat grind, lobed handle, very classic. You can get in a lot of colors, so you can find just about any color combination you want, including ones that are coated to help address the D2 steel maybe not having the corrosion resistance you're looking for, to help give it that little kick if that's what does it for you, no extra cost. The mechanics of the button lock are just about perfect. The button is designed in such a way that it has to be so positively engaged that you really just can't accidentally do it. And the noteworthy points are that this is an EDC gem, that to borrow a term, but it is just an EDC beast that is in a really affordable price range, and with really nothing wrong. Has some cool little touches that really bring it to light, like a really thin edge and then a very well supported tip, which is really nice to see. Great action. Bestech Man, I should say, the budget arm of Bestech, really has knocked it out of the park with a reversible clip and all of these features at a low price. The only thing I can hope for on a request is that this sells good enough that they do put out something like an S35VN with things like the different, stabilized wood, maybe some carbon fiber or something like that to go along with the Peel Ply G10 with the nice grooves that they have. Because some of those smoother materials like a micarta or anything like that, if it was done smooth like carbon fiber and then had this traction, would go very well. So S35VN would be a steel that you could put on here, give you add value, maybe some upgraded handle, still put it at like the $100 price point and still have a very high value knife. So that would be the only request I have. So that's about what I got for you. I think this is a sleeper. If you guys don't have this knife already and haven't looked at it, go take a look at it. Maybe it will be in your next budget knife buy. If you are looking at this knife, pull the trigger. It is actually better than you think. It exceeded my expectations. in a very good way. I think this is a knife that is really just out there as a sleeper knife that people should check out more. This is a really good knife. So I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.